currently they are a crap basketball
I'm
team.
not disagreeing. They're playing really bad basketball.
That's what I want to talk about today, because if you want to hang on to January and some soft wins in January, sure. They are a team right now that is spiraling, and it's embarrassing. They are a team that has fallen off of the face of the earth, and it can't be just because they don't have the talent. Because either they've been figured out, which this is the other concern I have, Alex, is that Badger basketball, historically, especially since COVID and all that, they bring back a lot of the same players. And so they get off the hot starts quicker than other teams because the Badgers just bring back the same players, so they don't have the continuity issues that other teams have. And then by the time it really matters, because even the year they won the Big Ten with Johnny Davis, it was it was starting to slip away, and it was a Chucky Hepburn corner three that saved that season for them as far as not throwing away the Big Ten title. That they start, and then they obviously they did bupkis in the tournament. There's a concern in my brain here that this team is a team that does well early because they bring back the majority of their starters, but then once everyone else finds their continuity and has their players gelling, then the Badgers are very beatable. So there are some red flags here that roll on for a little bit with Badger basketball, and I'm not into the fire guard point yet, but if they finish and let's say they don't win another game before the NCAA tournament, whether they make it or not, unless they make a run, I think his seat should be pretty damn hot. It's damn hot. But we're not there yet. I said there's a lot of ifs. Yeah. So don't be aggregating me, Prime.
I know you and I argued a lot about this last season when they missed the NCAA tournament, but I am very pro Greg Gard. I'm one of the biggest Greg Gard defenders on planet Earth, I think. I think he is the answer. As a head basketball coach at the collegiate level, at least for now, right? Like I don't know that last night's loss was necessarily his fault. I don't know that a lot of these losses were necessarily his fault. I mean, of course, you can make the recruiting argument, but I thought he did a pretty damn good job in terms of recruiting this year. You had a guy like A.J. Storr. You had a guy like John Blackwell who had a really nice game last night and was on a roll prior to the smoky elevator that evacuated the arena last night, which is just bananas to me. But nonetheless, you add those guys, you bring back everybody that was an NIT semifinalist last year. You should be playing better than this in the month of February. I'm with you. I still don't think we can just dismiss the month of January. They were in first place of the Big Ten. They were ahead of Purdue, who is the number one team in the country, or number two team in the country right now. They just have had a horrible, inexcusable fall from grace in the month of February. Now, I mentioned this earlier on Mr. Relevant, which you mentioned. Like, with this team, they're probably talented enough to compete with just about anybody in the NCAA. They get into the tournament, I think they can compete with just about anybody. But they need a lot of things to go their way. The month of February has been the exact opposite of that. Everything that's needed to go their way hasn't. They can't hit a three-point shot if they were shooting a basketball into the ocean. They suck at the free throw line yet again this year. They're shooting like 65, 70% from the charity stripe. Like, you're losing games that way. You lost yesterday by 4 points. I don't know what's gone wrong. Right? Yesterday they had 3 turnovers. 3. And they lost by 4 points. They had leads late. They just let them slip, and then they couldn't make a bucket in the last 90-plus seconds. So there are a lot of things that have gone wrong, but I still have faith this can be a good team. I think it's just a really inexcusably bad stretch.
I'm going to give you some red flags. They're 3-8 away from the Kohl Center. They're 4-6
their last 5.
They're 4-6 in their last 10. 3-6 away in the conference as well.
Yeah.
So they seem like a team that cannot travel their game. That they cannot bring their game somewhere else.
Yeah, Providence. I mean, you can bring up the Providence game earlier in the year, right? Like, other than neutral sites, they've struggled on the year or on the road all year long.
Right, and you look at some of the other teams. Like, nobody's great away from home, but again, 3-8 is worse than Illinois at 4-5 and Purdue at 6-3. So you are a team that is not able to carry their style of play other places. To say the Badgers are talented enough to make a tournament run, look, man, I'll leave that to you.
They are.
I mean, you say that, but right now there's no evidence. They're just as likely to flame out in the first round than they are to make a tournament run, and that is a factual statement.
I won't disagree with that.
And actually, if you were betting today, and maybe that should be our poll question instead of the one I was going to ask, what's more likely, the Badgers turn it around and make a tournament run, or they flame out and lose in the first round?
I think we have to define tournament run in that case.
Sweet 16.
Sweet 16?
Yep. Sweet 16.
So what's
or
more
lose in the
likely?
first round?
So
That's a good question.
At the end of February here, looking at Badger basketball, would you bet your money on the Badgers losing in the first round of the NCAA tournament or making Sweet 16? 844-770-3776.
I find it amazing, Jimmy, that 24 hours ago we were on this program and you're like, nobody gives a damn about Badgers basketball. But now they've lost 5 in a row on the road and you're like, okay, we got to bury them.
Yeah.
Grab the shovels.
Yeah, because I opened up Twitter this morning and everyone's pissed off and they rightly should be. It's embarrassing. I got Badger stands out there who ride or die for Greg Gard, throwing him under the bus for whether it was a joke or not, no, these are like, you're an idiot, don't ever fire Greg Gard, folks who are like, and they were calling him out for his joke or whatever the comment was about the fire, like you lose, or the smoke and the pause in the game. You lose the game, you got to shut up, Greg. Like, you don't get to say it. Like, I get it. Maybe he was trying to joke. Maybe you don't.
I think he was joking.
Just sound like a loser when you say it after the game. You can't do it.
I think it was lighthearted, but I get your point.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter what it was. It matters what it comes across as. And it comes across as sour grapes. When you are coaching a loser team who's 2-6 in February, you can't make the jokes.
I mean,
you can't.
I mean, when you shoot 30% from outside, 8 for 26, when you shoot 43% overall from the field against a team that shot 62% from the field, you're not going to win that basketball game.
I will say this. I'm not trying to get on the players as much, so Gard is facing the brunt of it. And I get the Gard and the player, like obviously the players aren't executing, but at this point, these are all Gard's guys, and Gard's the one handling the rotations, and Gard's the ones who is coaching these players during practices and all the rest. So this is all on, in college basketball, more than, as pro sports, it is heavily on the coach. So he has to wear it. He has to wear whatever's wrong with this team. He has to wear what's happened to some of these players. And that's a weird part of it. I mean, some of these players just don't look like the players they were early.
No, you're right.
And so were they figured out, or were they never that good?
I mean, two things can be true, right? Like, I think Steven Crowell's had a really rocky year. I think Tyler Wall had a rocky game yesterday. He got in foul trouble early, sat a lot of the second half, and just hasn't been the offensive presence I think they expected him to be. Only 9 points last night. The only starter not in double figures for Bucky. They
have no room for error.
No, but I still think you can make a case, and it sucks because I wouldn't have made this case in January, but I will at the end of February, is they still lack the offensive flamethrower they missed a year ago, right? Like the NIT run they made, that was impressive by all means, but it's the NIT nonetheless, is they were super well-balanced, they were experienced, it was a good experience for them, they were pissed off, they went on a run, right? But this year's team needed a true number one scorer. And while in a lot of games and a lot of wins, it's been A.J. Storr, it just hasn't been consistent enough. He shot under 50% again last night. He's looked upon as, the offensive flamethrower is the term I'll keep using. But he's been kind of inconsistent on that side of the floor.
844-770-3776. What's more likely, the Badgers make a Sweet 16 run or they lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament? It's unfortunate that college basketball has gotten to the point that if the Badgers did not win another game before the NCAA tournament, they probably make it, because an 18-win team that is 2-10 in their last 12 games would not be a tournament team under normal circumstances, because that sort of disastrous ending to a season would be enough to put you out.
I got to think about
that.
But
we'll just assume they get in.
Well,
and I don't think they're going to do that.
No, because I just dismissed you when you brought it up. So if they lose their last 3, that's a loss to Illinois, who's 13th, I think, in the country. That's a loss at home to Rutgers, which is a bad loss.
Yeah.
That should be a gimme win next week in their home finale on senior night.
Rutgers could be the game that decides if they make the tournament.
Yeah, it could be. And then obviously they go to Purdue at the end of the season. I don't expect them to win that game.
And then they'll play, and if they
and
lose 2 out of those 3.
They'll probably be the 6th seed in the Big Ten tournament, maybe the 7th seed. Maybe they miss it.
And it would mainly be because
if they lose the Rutgers and they lose in the first round of the Big Ten tournament,
and it's a 2-10 run. Like, to me, that's the stretch.
Maybe 2-9 run.
2-9, okay.
2-9.
No, if they lose the Big Ten tournament,
they lose that game
and
too.
they lose in the Big Ten.
Yeah, so they have to lose that one as well. So that would be 10 games. Like 2-10 is a brutal run.
With wins over who? Ohio State, who fired their head coach the next day, and Maryland at home.
Beat Michigan State twice. Michigan State's a
really
decent.
But Michigan State, if the Badgers lose out, Michigan State might end up in front of you.
Yeah, they will.
True.
They probably will.
Split with Iowa, too.
Well.
Like, looking at the standings right now, Wisconsin is, 5th? And so
Yeah, they're tied for 4th, I think, actually.
No, they would be the 5th seed in the tournament,
because
in the
of
Big Ten
Nebraska,
tournament
right?
if it started, because Nebraska has a tiebreaker because they did
But
lose to Nebraska.
if they happen to
Blew
lose
that one,
out,
too.
then Michigan State and Minnesota could jump them. They're both a game behind. I don't know their schedule and all that. So, like, it could, run downhill on them quickly. And so, like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a little bit of you watch more than I do, but I at least watch a good amount of Badger basketball. It's like, you got to take your medicine and just watch college basketball.
Sometimes you have to.
And like, this isn't specific to the Badgers. It's just college basketball, and I will continue to say this. Just more of a defense of some of the things I'll say about the Badgers. It's just gotten to be a bad product. But 844-770-3776. I don't know if I said Robin Madison said fire guard, line the pockets of Bobby Hurley and get him to Madison. David Deerfield, Jim is right, second year in a row that they have figured out as a season. No, this part of it, that they were figured out as the season went along, and they've lost their mojo as the season went along. And
and last year was more linear, right? Like they had a bad January.
but
they had a good January this year. So yes, as it's closing out, sure, I'll hear that argument.
But last year, they think they did get off to a nice start.
They did, yeah. They beat Marquette on the road in that double overtime game.
And then same with Johnny Davis. They still won the conference, but it got way tighter than it should have been. And then they obviously lost in the tournament.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of. I'm not saying it's right. It's just a working theory I have that because they bring back so many players that they're automatically prone to have a really good start because they're a team that has the continuity others don't have. So, for example, here, Stephen Kroll, he plays 35 minutes and takes 9 shots. Mm-hmm. And that, I don't care about the point. I'd rather have him be 5 of 15 or 16 and have 10 points than 5 of 9.
Agreed.
Okay, so Tyler Wall, overall this season, has been a consistent player. The problem with Tyler Wall is not with Tyler Wall. It's the fact that, if he isn't scoring, they're automatically in trouble. Yeah. Like he carries the weight of the team, so it's not on Tyler Wall for having a bad game, but he's also not allowed to have a bad game because they don't have a lot of other players. AJ Storr, I think he's been figured out a little bit that unless his jumper is hot and he's a streaky jump shooter, he's a lot more one-dimensional. Mm-hmm. That he's hard. It's harder for him to score. But at least he's taking shots. Klesmit is streaky.
True that. Yeah,
Klesmit is just streaky. And again, so like when you're trying to figure out how you're going to get consistent points, well, if Wall's off and Klesmit's not hot, well, now you're in real trouble. Chucky is, again, steady Eddie. Again, you get what you get out of Chucky. He is a nice Big Ten basketball player and a starting Big Ten guard in the Big Ten. He's a nice player.
He led the team in rebounding last night.
Right. He's
shortest player on the floor most of the time.
Yeah. He's a grind. I love Chucky.
I really like Chucky.
He's just like he's at his kind of his. He's kind of like Joel Staub. He's just like at his ceiling. He's a good player.
Okay.
I
actually don't hate that comp.
Right. Because I think Stabby got a bad rap. I just think that Chucky's a guy that you know what you're going to get. And that's valuable in college.
The issue with him, though, is it maybe not even an issue. I guess when you use the term consistently or consistency with him, he is consistent. The scoring just isn't.
He's just not a scorer, though, is the problem. He's still going to get you roughly
he can get 15.
Double digits.
He can get 15. He can get 20, and he'll have nights where he'll do that. Last night, I think he had 15.
Yeah. But that's not good for the team.
But there's some nights where he'll have 2. Right, and that was the case against Purdue when they lost. And I just don't know that you can do that either. So I'm very, very back and forth on this team. I mean,
I just want to run through the rest of the players. Like Winter, he's young.
Not playing much.
Yeah, Gilmore. Esigen's the weird one. I don't know what happened. I mean, I think you were trying to put him as all Big Ten before the season started.
I was. Yeah. I thought he would start. I thought he would play 30 minutes a night. That's just clearly hasn't happened. It's being blamed on his lack of defensive presence, but I mean, if you look at the Badgers, they're allowing a lot more points than they have in the Greg Gard era.
Do you think he transfers?
I wouldn't blame him. I don't know that he does, no, but I wouldn't blame him.
Yeah, I could see him going. Was he from Illinois?
Indiana.
I could see him going
back to Indiana.
Go play for Indiana, but he could play for.
He's the number 7 all-time scorer in Indiana high school.
Go play for Indiana State. Honestly, they're better than the Badgers and Indiana.
Go play for.
Are they good this year?
Yes.
Go play for Butler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's places you go play. Yeah.
No Brad Stevens, though.
Yeah, but they're still like a solid.
He'll come back
there's
one
a
day.
guard replacement. Go get Brad Stevens from the Celtics. Yeah.
Bobby Hurley's too hard, so why don't we get Brad Stevens from the Celtics?
Look, to make my world to work, but I know you guys wouldn't hate it. Look, man, just go get Dusty May from FAU.
I wouldn't hate it.
He got, I think, 30 wins last year. He's over 20 wins this year. They're going to be
okay. So hold on. We got to slow down.
We're not firing Gard yet.
We got to slow down.
But Blackwell's a nice player. I like Blackwell.
Yeah,
Inconsistent young player.
He's really good.
So what the problem is, they have a lot of young players who are going to by nature being consistent. And then the Stars.
But that's the issue, Jim. Is
Like
the window is closing,
right?
Because I mean, like next year, you'll still have a really solid backcourt. You'll still have Chucky. You'll still have Klesmit. You'll still have Storr. Hopefully, you still have a Sejan. You'll still have Blackwell, right? You'll still have a really solid backcourt. But your front court is disappearing, right? Crowell and Wall are both out after this year, more than likely. I don't know if Crowell can have another year, but Wall is done for sure. So then you turn to Nolan Winter and everybody's favorite player, Carter Gilmore.
Well, I mean,
nobody's going to giggle at that.
Well, because here's the other thing.
Thank you, Kawhi.
Dave chimes in on YouTube. It says, happened more times than twice, guys. This team has floundered to a disappointing finish. I'm going to look that up during the break.
I actually got that for you right now. Last year, Wisconsin started the season 11-12. They finished 9-13 in their final 22 games.
So they were just bad all the way around.
Yeah.
They were worse in the second half.
Well, they started the season 11-2. That's kind of similar to this season.
I thought you said 11-12.
Did I say 11-12?
Yes.
All right.
I thought that was a lot of games. But,
look, guys, numbers are hard.
Then actually, yes, that's a bad 11-2.
They started 11-2.
I thought they started
the season 11-2 last year in 2022. Yes.
Oh, no kidding.
And then it was then they fell off.
Big Ten play was bad for them last year, yeah.
But again, this is and it's just a working theory. I don't know how to nail it down, but like there is a built-in consistency for the Badgers. They roll these players over year, that they have the continuity, and then they're figured out. And I'm just saying that if Mac was ever going to make a case, that's one of the things he's going to look at. And we're not there yet with Gard, but if they miss the tournament this year. Now we're looking at a team that, again, all I ask, I'm not asking for the world. And I've said it before, and you know what? I'm going to share it on the other side. We're going to hear Matt talk about Revive Restoration in a second here, but I'm going to describe the Bo Ryan standard, and that's all I want here. And I don't think it's as high as everyone thinks it is, but I'll give you the Bo Ryan standard, and I want to ask you if it's fair. This is Rutledge and Hamilton, presented by Coors Light.